Good day from Anagalactic on the second to the last day of the first month of 2026. Over here you'll see the moon, which I believe is a most significant visual portrait to illustrate what we'll be talking about. The secrets of the universe begins with the moon. That's just one way to begin, of course. You could begin anywhere in the universe. And that's actually quite a paradox. Where do you begin with infinity? Well, you begin with the moon. I just say so because I can teach this to children. Science is for children. Adults vary, but children do not vary. They have a natural instinct for nature. They want to know because they're programmed to want to know. Not only do they want to know, they want to have fun on the way. That's a child. One hopes that one never grows out of that. Yeshua, the great master from heaven who came to earth and was rejected, told us, while he was still here, you must become like a little child. In other words, you must return to your original self. This is mysticism. Yeshua, of course, spoke about heaven. He said, if I teach you about earthly things and you can't even understand that, how am I going to teach you about heavenly things? Let me translate that for you into modern language. If I talk to you about physics and you can't even understand physics or mathematics or geometry, you can't even understand that, how are you going to understand reality? So Yeshua was trying to teach us about truth. And he has been called by several wonderful names, quite in accord with his relationship with his father. And I've spoken about Islam and Christianity and even Yehudaism and world politics and world religion and philosophy. I've gone into all that. Politics, we've covered all that. And if you can't even understand that, how are you going to understand consciousness? How are you going to interpret real answers when you can't even interpret what's right in front of your eyes? So that's why I start with the moon. It's for your sake, but not your present self. It's for the sake of that which is still locked inside you, which you could remember if you chose, your childlike self, your innocent, trusting self. When you look at the moon, you should look at it as a child. I've related a scene from Apollo 13 where a very famous actor who played Forrest Gump, he also played an astronaut in an Apollo mission, Apollo 13, a cursed, really horrendous mission of sending human beings out into a vacuum to see if they can survive. Get to the moon and come back. My goodness, how wonderful. How about go to heaven and come back? Wouldn't you like to do that? Well, Yeshua will. He's from heaven, he's in heaven now, and he's going to come back. But alas, he's not going to be very happy when he returns. And that's the book of Revelation, which I will be covering very shortly as soon as we're done covering physics. I will teach you about earthly things to see if you can understand that. And I will repeat the words of my master. If you can't even understand when I talk to you about physical reality, consciousness, and just what you can actually interpret with your own native computer, if you can't even understand that, how am I going to teach you about Revelation, the prophets, Muhammad, Enoch, the Quran, the I Ching from China? How am I going to tell you about the flood, what it means, how you need to interpret reality from the point of view of wisdom, which is beyond you and before you? How will you ever be able to approach what you actually need if you can't even understand what you actually think you want? So I begin with the moon to test you for your own sake, not to hurt you, but to see if you can actually do it. Because if you can't understand what I say about the moon right now, you're not going to be able to understand anything I say about Revelation. And you may not want to. Well, that's because you're stupid. And I'm just going to tell you because now that's all I have left to do. I'm running out of time. I have to finish my task on earth, which was to enlighten men and help men get to heaven. Just as men have helped me get to heaven, if you don't get to heaven, You're worthless to yourself. You'll just die stupid, as you probably are now. And if you're not stupid, why are you listening to me? What would I possibly have to offer you if you're completely out of your mind and stupid? You see, I began that way too. I'm talking about myself. Whenever I talk in these terms, I'm talking about myself as well. Now I've transcended that, so I'm capable of being a guide. I am guiding you right there, but not to land on it. It's in heaven. Why would anybody want to go to the moon? Why would anybody want to go to the moon? You can see perfectly well that if you go there, you're going to die. Yes, if you're sent to the moon, it's because nobody wants you here. Why would anybody turn that into a heroic story? It's because of that scene in Apollo 13, where that famous actor who played Forrest Gump was also attempting to urinate on his own lawn and found out he had a urinary tract infection. And that actually happened on the mission. Apollo 13 barely made it back to Earth. You should see that movie if you have not. But what I'm referring to is that precious scene which justifies the whole movie, no matter how the United States government failed, and is just tragically cruel. That's not really what the movie, in my opinion, is about. It's about that scene where he's standing on his lawn with a urinary tract infection, and he looks up at the moon. And the cinematography is done well enough. It's pretty amateurish. It's not a very well-made movie, but there's not much to work with except the moon. The moon is eloquent. And I think if you look at it, you'll see that it arouses in you an ancient instinct, something you've forgotten, something that's been beaten out of you. The sheer wonder, the sheer awe. Let's talk about that so we understand the three principles of science, without which there's no point in you and I continuing together. You need to start to catch up. You need to start elevating yourself. You need to be ready for what I'm going to tell you. The secrets of the universe. I'm not kidding around. That's a perfect circle. That is a perfect circle. Later in life, we learn, as I'm sure you're aware, that that is not merely a circle. It's a sphere. It's an object just hanging in space like a Christmas ornament. It's a perfect object. It's a sphere. The Earth is also a sphere. It took a little while for that information to become disseminated throughout, I guess you would say, civilized culture, because it doesn't immediately look like the Earth is a sphere. Now, the fact is, the ancients did know it was a sphere. The Greeks knew that the Earth was a sphere. It's easy to prove, and you can do this experiment yourself, at least to prove to yourself that anybody can find out easily that the Earth is a sphere. It's rather obvious that the Earth is a sphere if you're near an ocean or a very large lake beyond which you cannot see the other side. You will notice that the horizon is curved. It's very obvious. But you see, we also see other spheres. So it's easy to deduce that the Earth is a sphere. It's clear and obvious that the Earth is a sphere. But when we look at, for instance, the disk of the sun, which I used to stare at for as long as I could, it is definitely a sphere. The moon is definitely a sphere. Well, you might want to ask a question, and you actually must ask this question, and if you resist, you have to force yourself to ask this question, that the moon is a sphere. How did that get there? Well, nobody knows. Nobody has even attempted to explain that. That's mysterious. That arouses a sense of wonder and awe. And all kinds of emotions come into play when you look at the moon and, be honest, just try to become as a little child. Or you won't get into heaven. Whatever that means to you. So figure out what it means for you. The moon is not lying to you. About 90% of an American statistical population cannot hold their attention to anything past about 2 minutes. I will be going into the deepest form of mathematics, geometry, and physics that you've ever heard or ever will hear, and I will teach you all the answers so that you'll be beyond your mathematicians and beyond your physicists. I begin with the moon, and that's where I'm going to begin in the next video. A little later today, it's early in the day here in Chico, California. We're having good weather. I hope you're having a very good time in this brand new civil calendar year. In winter in the Northern Hemisphere, this is a perfect circle. It's also a perfect sphere. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you.